We've made a lot of progress so far. Right, champ? Hope so you remember them. So finally we have made it and moved to our last topic. In this topic, we will be focusing on the concept of exception handling. Making it more interesting, let's move further and continue the final chapter of our journey. Suppose a person is running on a road. Accidentally he bumped into an obstacle and fell and got injured in his leg. What would happen if he did try to get up and walk? Falling and getting injury to his leg is the exception. There are other strategies he could use to avoid it. Say, he can walk or run from another side of an obstacle. Similarly, an exception can be a chance in the programming language to handle the errors. Suppose a person has good theoretical knowledge but lacks practical experience, he may find difficulties while he performs the activity practically. Similarly, you may come across errors in programming. Errors are the mistakes or faults in the program that cause our program to behave unexpectedly. Some of the errors will stop the program from getting compiled or executed. Thus, errors should be removed before compiling and executing. Exception handling is an important concept in programming. It means how do you handle a situation where due to some error your program can go for a flip and give unexpected results. An exception refers to a problem that arises during program execution. A good example is when you are performing a division operation and then you divide by 0 and due to such attempts an exception will be raised. With exceptions, you can transfer the control of a program from one part to another. Exception maintains the normal flow of the program. It also separates error handling code from regular code. Using exception handling, we ensure that in case of errors, the program doesn't terminate suddenly, but instead provides proper error messages to the user, and allows the user to understand what exactly the error is. Hold your seat, champ, and kindly pay attention. This might stretch as well. In this subtopic, we will be learning the backbone of exception handling. So get yourself warm and be ready to learn something interesting. Do you know what I am talking about? Come along. I will let you know soon. You got me, champ. Great. I was giving you hints about keywords. So let's explore the keywords in exceptional handling. Keywords are also known as blocks. Exception handling in VB.NET comprises of the following keywords: try, catch, finally, throw. We can define a try statement in two forms: try catch finally. Let's consider an adventure sport called tightrope walking between two mountain cliffs. Suppose the distance to be covered is 100 ft. While doing so, you just don't move step by step. You try to move step by step. So, what happens when you try to move a step ahead on the rope? There are two outcomes. Either you succeed or you don't. When you succeed, you move on and try with the next step, and so on until you reach the other end. But if you fail in moving ahead and you slip off the rope, you fall and die. End of story. You cannot continue with the remaining steps, because you are already dead. The same is the case in the try block of exceptions. Let's continue with the example of try block. Here comes the important part. Catch. Imagine there is some helpful creature down the cliffs, which picks you up every time you fail and places you onto the next step. Though you failed at a step, because of the helpful creature, you moved on to the next step. The same is the case with try and catch blocks and exceptions. Here your part is to try. That is, to try and do some operation, which may not succeed. But if there is no catch and the operation fails, then the program crashes and dies like you do when you slip off and fall in the absence of a helpful creature. That helpful creature is the catch statement. It catches your program from fall, or rather any such unfavorable conditions, and allows your program to continue running. In a try block, we define the code we want to execute and protect from any possible errors. The work of the try block is to identify the code block for which a specific exception will be activated. It should be followed by a catch blocks. Catching of the exception is done in this block. It is an exception handler in which the exception is handled. The catch keyword indicates the catching of an exception. In VB.NET, the try-catch statement is useful to handle unexpected or runtime exceptions which will occur during the execution of the program. The try-catch statement will contain a try block followed by one or more catch blocks to handle different exceptions. The syntax for using try-catch looks like the following. As per the syntax, the try block will contain the reserved code that may cause an exception so that if any errors occurred in our code, then immediately the code execution will be moved to the catch block to handle those exceptions. In the try-catch statement, the catch block will execute only when an exception occurred in the code that is reserved by try block. Suppose you want to boil some water to cook noodles, but you find that you are out of noodles. Now definitely you don't want to leave the stove on with the pot of water just sitting there. The finally block is where you would turn the stove off, pour out the water, and put the pot away. In the same way in programming languages, this is useful in scenarios where you are forcefully allocating some resources in the try block, and you want to release it even if an exception is caught or occurs. Finally block will always be executed, so long as you reach the try block. We had already discussed the try and catch block. Now let's see what is the role of finally block and try-catch finally form in VB.NET. Finally block is used to run a set of statements whether an exception has occurred or not. The code in the finally block will execute even if there are no exceptions. That means if you write a finally block, the code should execute after the execution of try block or catch block. In a try-catch finally statement, the try block is used to hold the code that may cause an exception, catch block to handle exceptions, and the finally block is used to clean up or release any resources that are allocated in a try block. For example, close database connections or any streams or files that are opened in a try block. The syntax for using try-catch finally looks like the following. The finally block will always be executed even if an exception occurred or not, and it is useful to clean up or release unmanaged resources. In the try-catch finally statement, only one try and finally block is allowed, but we can use multiple catch blocks to handle different exception types. An exception is thrown after the occurrence of an issue. This is the work of the throw keyword. In VB.NET, throw is a keyword and it is useful to throw an exception manually during the execution of the program, and we can handle those thrown exceptions using try-catch blocks based on our requirements. This is done with the throw keyword, which is usually included in the try section. The syntax for using throw keyword looks like the following. Expression provides information about the exception to be thrown. For example, throw E. Here, E is an exception that is derived from the exception class and throw keyword to throw an exception. Imagine a kid had made a mistake of counting the total number of chocolates and giving half of the chocolates to his parents. The kid is not able to understand the counting and making the same mistake again and again. Then his parents guided him with the correct way of counting and allowed him to identify the mistake and then do the counting again. Exception classes in VB.NET also work similarly as explained in the example. The exception class allows you to identify the type of error and take corrective action. All exception classes are derived from the base class called exception. Exceptions are of different types, and these are nothing but classes. There are two exceptions mainly in VB.NET. System.System exception. System.application exception. The system.exception is the superclass or parent of exceptions. System.exception represents errors that occur during application execution. This is the base class for all exceptions in VB.NET, so any other type of exception must be derived from it. .NET allows you to define your own exceptions. You can get user-defined exception classes from the application exception class. So the exceptions defined by the user should derive from this class. In exception handling, you can choose to throw an object. However, the object must be derived from system.exception class, directly or indirectly. You should throw exceptions only when an unexpected or invalid activity occurs that prevents a method from completing its normal function. You can throw many types of throwable object using the keyword throw. You can use a throw statement in the catch block to throw the shown object, which gives us the result after execution of the program in the following way. We have created a module named exception. Then we have used the try block, which is the start of the error handling code. Now the important part of the code is the throw block, which is used to throw an exception object. An exception can occur in this program, hence we have used the throw block within the try catch block. We have used object X for catching an exception if the line throws an exception. If in the case an exception occurs, print the exception message on the console. The finally block is used to run whether an exception is caught or not. Print the message on the console when the finally block is executed. End try is the end of the exception handling code. Let's keep an eye on some of the important points of this topic. The basic point we have learned in this topic is that exceptions are used to handle the errors. Errors are the mistakes or faults in the program that causes our program to behave unexpectedly. With exceptions, you can transfer the control of a program from one part to another. Exception handling in VB.NET comprises the following keywords: try, catch, finally, throw. The exception class allows you to identify the type of error and take corrective action. There are two exceptions mainly in VB.NET. System.system exception. System.application exception. Finally, we have completed our journey. I hope so. Now you can work on VB.NET. Cheers to the good times. Stay healthy and love programming.